This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is Abbi and Cheree, Let's Talk Teens, episode 15. Is your teen's self-talk in the toilet?
This is such a good topic, right? I mean, I think this is something, Abby, that sometimes we struggle with as adults still and haven't totally figured out how to talk to ourselves and be our best cheerleader and supporter. I think so often we don't realize that there's this bully living in our head, this inner critic, and it's loud and it feels normal to us. And so we just continue to have this negative self-talk that we don't even realize is affecting us. I like to think about why self-talk is so important, why we want to make sure our self-talk isn't in the toilet or why our self-talk isn't causing problems for us. I think it's so important because, we think about when we say something, like if you were to go to your kids and say something really mean, Abby, like, you suck, or you're really bad at that. What would it do to your kids?
Oh my gosh. Even just you saying that, I was like, oh, that would, their little eyes would just get so big. That'd be devastating.
Devastating. And yet we do that to ourselves. Our teenagers for sure do this to themselves very frequently, unfortunately. I can't believe how much I coach on this exact topic.
Hmm.
And we don't even realize it. I remember a few years back, I was coaching this teen boy. He was a senior in high school, and he was so hard on himself. And he hadn't realized how much he bullied himself and what his self-talk looked like and that inner critic and how often it came out. And as we coached and we talked about like that voice in his head and what he was saying to himself, I remember just saying, "Hey, all these things you're saying to yourself, would you ever say them to your mom?" And he was like, "Oh, no, of course not." And I'm like, "Why not?" And he's like, "It would destroy her." And I was like,
Mm.
do you think there's any chance it's actually destroying you?
Oh,
And it was just like the huge aha because that inner critic, that self-talk was slowly destroying him. It was destroying his self-confidence. It was helping, like, I mean, it wasn't helping. It was sabotaging him in so many areas of his life. And he wasn't showing up as his best self. And he wasn't showing up on the swim team like he wanted to. And he wasn't showing up in his grades like he wanted to in his schoolwork. And he wasn't showing up with his friends and in the dating world because he was constantly criticizing himself. And so it shut him down. And I think that's why it's so important to understand the importance of self-talk because how we think about ourselves, what we think about ourselves either elevates us and helps our self-esteem and our self-confidence grows, or it does the opposite and our self-confidence goes in the toilet. We don't feel good about ourselves. It's hard to achieve our goals. It's hard to be our best self because there's always this inner critic.
I was just thinking of one of the tools that I like to do when I'm coaching teens on self-talk because it is like I've never had a client that self-talk wasn't an issue, right? And the other day, my friend who's also a coach, um, I was watching a webinar of hers and I just admire her so much. And just in passing, she was like, "Oh, I always talk nice to myself, always." And I remember going, I said, like, always, always, you never have like a mean thought to yourself? And she goes, "Oh no, like I do not struggle with the self-talk." And that so inspired me because guess what? I struggle with this. I, without even realizing it, that voice in my head tends to go negative. It tends to go like, Abbi, you knew better. Come on now. Like it's that meaner coach, right? And that was a good call to go, oh, like that doesn't have to be, right? Like I can be inspired by my friend who's like, no, I always talk to myself nice. And I thought, I'm probably at 50%. Like 50% is nice and 50% is not. And so I think every one of us could always use that little tune up of, okay, where's my self-talk at? And I was reminded of when I was working with my one of my clients. This was many years ago, and this teen girl, she was a senior in high school and just having a rough go, and she was on the scale of being overly harsh on herself. You know, she's on the cheer team, she's going to the gym all the time, she's watching what she eats, and yet she still was not happy with her body, right? So we're constantly working on this. And finally, I said, hey, I want you the next time I see you to bring a picture of yourself as a little girl, right? Bring a picture of yourself as a little girl. And she did. And so I said, I want you to look at that little girl and I want you to think about being, I think she had a picture of her at 5. I said, I want you to remember being 5 and what you liked to do and your favorite animal and all these things, right? And we went back to being 5. And I said, what would you say to this little girl if she was having a hard day? And typically with all my clients, they'll usually cry. They'll usually say like, "Oh my gosh, like I would tell her she's so amazing and just it's going to be okay, right?" And like then we use it as a springboard of like, "You're still that little girl, right? You're still that person. You just because your body's 18, right, doesn't mean that your spirit and soul doesn't need to be treated just as gently as a 5-year-old." And
Mm,
this
I
is the
love
only
that.
time this has ever happened to me, Cheree, but my this client said, I would tell her to shape up and she better start doing all these things right. And I was like, okay, we need to take a step back. And so that's a tool I usually use as I love to think about myself as a child and like, okay, how would I approach this situation? Like I'm mad at myself because I procrastinated on an assignment or I didn't do what I was supposed to. And then I really try, I go, okay, how would I talk to 5-year-old Abby about this? And I'd say, you know what? We gotta make better plans next time, but it's okay, right? Like it's so much
Mhm.
more
Exactly.
gentle, right? So
Yes.
that's one of my experiences I was thinking about.
I love that because really what we tell our brain, it believes. It can't really differentiate between what is true and what's not. So if we're always telling ourselves we're ugly or we're not smart enough or we're not doing it right, our brain is going to believe that and it's going to act accordingly. I love the idea of talking to that 5-year-old self. And when you are kind and compassionate and understanding to that 5-year-old self, it actually motivates you to be better and do better. We never change from feeling crappy about ourselves and we don't change for the better. It actually is the opposite. But when we feel good about ourselves, that's where real change happens. I think it's important as a parent of a teen that we model this. If
Yes.
our teens hear us say things like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I'm so dumb. Or, oh, I really sucked it up this time. Or, oh man, like my hair looks so ugly. Or these clothes fit so bad on me. Or I'm such a pig. Or all the things that sometimes as parents we say, and our kids hear us say that. Is that what we want them to hear? Do we want to normalize that that's okay? Or are we kind and compassionate to ourselves? Do we talk to ourselves like we talk to someone we love? And I think it's really important as a parent of a teen to really do some self-reflection on how do I talk to myself and how do my teens hear me talk to myself about myself? And then that can, there's just some modeling there that is really, really important. I love this phrase. Sometimes I have used it with my kids where they're just beating themselves up. And I'll say, hey, don't talk to my Caden like that. Don't talk to
Oh.
my Maddie like that. Or, don't talk to my best friend like that. And I use it as like, I care about you, so I'm not okay. If anyone else talked to you that way, I would so not be okay with it. So of course I'm not okay that you talk to yourself that way too. So kind of stopping that in a loving, maybe kind of funny way, but hey, stop talking to my best friend that way, or, you know, whatever that might help as a parent.
I love that because it breaks the brain cycle, right? It breaks the oh, I'm just so bad, and then they have to go, "Oh yeah, like I am my mom's baby." Like it I love that. I also was thinking as a parent, we need to shut down like the negative self-talk, the negative tearing each other down, like the minute it happens. I know that all families are different, right? And some families tease each other and some families are sarcastic. So sometimes the way families interact is through little digs, right? And we can't pretend that those don't have an effect. And so sometimes it takes reflection as a family to go, okay, we tear each other down, and not in a malicious way, but in a, I don't like lazy way. Like we just don't even realize what we're doing. And so to just step in, and anytime you see your teen going down the cycle, or anytime you see siblings kind of going at each other, you step in and you say, guys, that's not how our family talks, or that's not true, or I love, hey, don't talk to my baby like that. Like I'd
Mhm.
go beat somebody up if they said that to you, right? So
Mhm.
why would we let you say that to yourself? So I love those ideas, Cheree.
So good. One last one before we finish up is in our house as our kids were growing up, if they, did a put down to anyone, we'd say, okay, now you have to give them three put ups. And, so our kids were silly about it at first. They'd be like, I like your hair. I like your butt. I like your shoes, like they'd just be silly. But then, we'd be like, no, be reals, like not just looks. We want, what do you love about this person? But we started doing that also with their self-talk. So they put themselves down. Okay, give yourself three put-ups. And so that's a good way to do it as a parent with your teens. But whatever you choose to do, we want to become aware. We want our teens to become aware of that negative self-talk. A lot of times, awareness is the key to change.
Yes.
Most of the time, awareness is the key to change. And so becoming aware of that self-talk so we can change it, realizing that we would never say that to someone we love, our 5-year-old self, our mother, our best friend, then we for sure shouldn't be saying it to us.
I know that as a parent, as a spouse, as a mom, it feels like my compliments don't mean as much. Like my spouse will call me out on this. I'll go home from church and I'll say, "Oh, the ladies in the ward really liked my dress." And he'll go, I told you that. Like I already told you that." And I say, "Oh, I know, but it kind of went in one ear and out the other." And so it can feel like our compliments don't matter, but they do. Like we as a family should be compliment machines. And I have found that for the majority of the clients, the families I've interacted with, compliments aren't just a natural happenstance. They come from intention of, okay, family, we are going to compliment each other all day. Like if you see good, you say good, right? So make complimenting a part of your family culture, because those compliments will help weigh out some of those negative self-talks. Like if we're so busy finding the good in our family and our siblings and like actually verbalizing it, we're giving ourselves permission to like compliment ourselves, and it will become more natural. So don't overlook compliments. I love that you would make your kids do that. And just when we are helping our teen with our self-talk, let's be sure we don't turn this into a, oh, you're the worst at your self-talk. Like you need to improve this, right? Because we're just compounding the problem there. So find
Exactly. Yeah.
loving and real ways that we can say, oh, hey, I let's try that again. That did not come out the way I think you meant it to come out, right? So it can be tricky, but there are some really real ways through complimenting, through modeling this, through bringing awareness, that we can just really help shape our teen self-talk.
I love it. We're going to help each other spiral up, especially our teenagers. Okay, well, join us next week. This is funny after our topic today of your self-talk in the toilet, but we're going to talk about when your teen is being a beast. So let's join us next week.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching, or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow, or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.